You're listening to The World at 8 with Lynn Mozart. The World at 8, the number one in nationalist news.
Highlights of the news today, the 20th of April. A legal immigrant bailed before deportation proceeds to commit rape. Afghani immigrants jump to freedom off lorry near Selborne in Hampshire. From the belly of the beast with Nick Griffin. This is our country, mass immigration is ruining it. These are our freedoms. Reports say technology used in North Korean parade is probably Chinese. Grand Prix in Bahrain subject to 3 days of rage from protesters. Thought for the day: is the UK becoming anti-white, anti-male and anti-family? UK news. The border agency bailed an illegal immigrant who then went out and raped a 32-year-old woman. He was given bail pending his deportation, an act which nationalists say is just asking for many illegals to commit crime to stay in Britain and claim family, victim, life status. He attacked the woman shortly after his bail, punching her in the face and raping her in the park at Cambridge. He then stole her mobile phone. Ali Bokasem, who is 29 years old, has been sent to prison for 6 years, after which he should be deported and not bailed. To cap this story, it has been reported in the Petersfield and Borden Post this week that a horde of immigrant Afghans shot out of a lorry like Easter rabbits on the run, racing past a stunned forklift driver and heading for the hills above Selborne in Hampshire. The 14 stowaways were in the refrigerated container of a Spanish lorry travelling from a commercial orchard on the French-Spanish border to Blackmore Apple Farm. The lorry stopped at the nearby farm to unload and the driver opened the rear doors. The farmer was heard to comment, "They shot out of there like jackrabbits and legged it across the farm. It was just a normal morning and suddenly there were Afghans everywhere." The forklift driver was completely taken aback and surprised. Now this is just down the road from yours truly in Borden, so I am not a very happy bunny. But with all the Asian restaurants round here, they will soon vanish unfortunately. It is easy to see how we are the most put upon country by immigrants apart from Italy. Where are our police and border agency people to find them? Euronews with Nick Griffin. It's been one of those parliamentary sessions where the people whose votes sent me to Europe really got a bit of what they voted for, Nick Griffin tells us in his latest dispatch from the belly of the beast, which this week was sitting in Strasbourg. We were voting on the crazed lulling report, which contains a whole raft of measures that will use the global warming hoax as an excuse to pile extra taxes on electricity and fuel. While the bulk of the report was, predictably, voted through by the usual dominant bloc of fanatical socialists, woolly-headed liberals and cowardly Tories on the take, a number of amendments which drew a few of its most expensive teeth did manage to scrape through. One vote in particular, which rejected a leftist amendment that would have imposed a significant extra burden on taxpayers, went the right way by just one vote. So all who helped to send me here owe themselves a pat on the back. Like it says in the advert, every little helps. Also being voted on was an even crazier report on women and climate change. Produced by a crackpot Scandinavian watermelon, that's someone who's green on the outside but red through and through. This was page after page of sociological jargon, unscientific climate change hysteria and man-hating, family-denying, resentful lesbian fantasy. To sum it up, white males who work are responsible for all evils and must be humiliated and taxed to death in order to usher in the glorious new era of EU-SSR equality. It was truly gruesome reading, and I was pleased to get 90 seconds to put it on to record, a reminder that the propagation of such divisive anti-male propaganda is not a victimless crime. It helps to create the climate in which hundreds and thousands of men are denied access to their children by biased social workers and courts, and in which untold but growing numbers of loving families have had their children snatched by the state. What I had to say in full will be on our website, both as text straight away and as a video clip in a couple of days. I hope that it will filter through the underground social network of good people fighting for justice for fathers and parents who fall foul of the anti-male, anti-family, anti-human agenda of the Frankfurt School of Marxists and common-purpose social engineers, who are steadily dismantling all that is good, decent and natural in our society. Where will these creatures run and hide when the popular anger that is building up against them suddenly comes to the boil? How will they explain and excuse the evil that they have perpetrated, the hurt they have caused? As is so often the way, the Bible says it better than any of us could. But whoso shall offend one of these little ones, which believe in me, it were better for him that a millstone were hanged about his neck, and that he were drowned in the depths of the sea. All too predictably, the report was passed by a very substantial majority. Europe's Conservatives and Christian Democrats, who could easily block such poison, sadly lack the basic ideological and moral compass even to understand the real aim of such poison. Or, if they understand, they lack the courage to stand up to the left and to vote for to defend even the basics of our civilization. The Frankfurt School assault on all that we hold dear is a stealth revolution. As such, it can only be countered by the revolutionary ideology and fighting spirit provided by nationalism. I was speaking yesterday with a group of French patriots who came in to discuss the future of nationalism in their country. Present also were Hungarians and Italians. It is always heartening to have it confirmed that, whatever our nationality, we understand the same problems, reach the same conclusions and come to similar answers. Now, also thanks to the voters who trusted in us to strive to make things better, the alliance of European national movements is making real, practical steps towards coordinating a common nationalist fight for true democracy and the restoration and preservation of the identity and diversity of the nations of our continent. Meanwhile, back in Britain, Thursday saw examples both of our commitment to democracy and of the increasingly undemocratic and totalitarian nature of the Condem regime. In Goresbrook Ward in Barking and Dagenham, the by-election was unfortunately decided by Labour's newly imported African bloc vote. Our campaigners came across several voters who had only been in our country for a few weeks. They know nothing of our ways, they haven't paid in a penny to our system. Democracy has never been more than a blood-stained cloak for naked tyranny in their countries and cultures. But there they are, outvoting local people whose forebears loved, built and even died for our country. I have to say it makes me feel sick. And not just me. Despite Labour's gerrymandering and an all too understandable apathy amongst many native Brits when it comes to voting in a political system that has let them and theirs down so badly, we took more than 30% of the total vote, some 9 times the votes for either the Tory government or the BBC-hyped UKIP safety valve. Our vote was several times bigger than that of all the opposition parties combined. We are yet again confirmed as the only viable opposition to Labour as the party of local government in working class Britain. And it's not just in Barking and Dagenham. The same pattern has been established up and down the country. And certainly effective and vocal opposition is needed. The dawn raids and arrests for the thought crimes of at least half a dozen anti-Islam campaigners from anti-Zionist factions of the English Defence League mirror the arrest last week of our own Mike Coleman, also on utterly spurious allegations of incitement to racial hatred. Why should we worry about the arrest of people who are not part of our organisation? Because, when the chips are down, an attack on the freedom of speech and association of anyone is an attack on all of us. And because this is not about legality or public order, it's cold-blooded totalitarian oppression. The ruling regime and the police use the occasionally less than elegant turns of phrases written by understandably angry young men shamefully let down by a dysfunctional socialist education system, as an excuse to intimidate the entire population into being too scared to use social networking to express absolutely legitimate and all too well-founded concerns over mass immigration and Islamisation. So let me make it crystal clear. It is still legal and safe to use the internet to stand up for our British identity, Christian heritage and traditional freedoms. It is still legal and safe to criticise members of minority groups who deserved criticism, provided you do so in calm, measured terms and avoid even non-derogatory slang terms. Any deviation from this rule into expressions of anger, frustration or crudity would put you at risk of joining the ranks of those who've had their front doors kicked in by counter-terror police, who would be far better employed rounding up and deporting Islamic extremists than persecuting native Brits for thought crimes. So don't risk it. Be polite but forceful. This is our country. Mass immigration is ruining it. These are our freedoms, for which generations have fought and died, and which are now threatened by Islam and its cowardly and opportunist establishment allies. The political elite are imposing a plan to replace us in our own country. We need to organise and speak out so as to ensure that before they get rid of us, we get rid of them. World News. Reports say that images of nuclear missile vehicles and technology used in a North Korean military parade could have been made by the Chinese. Communist North Korea, whose failed attempt to fly a missile across South Korean and Japanese airspace last week, ended in total embarrassment for the communists. One reporter commented that North Korea just doesn't have the money or brains to build such a vehicle. It's obviously been supplied by China. The Grand Prix in Bahrain is due to get underway today with one slight problem. Activists have promised trouble at the event and have even threatened 3 days of rage. Some officials want the event cancelled as it was last year due to protests. It would appear Bahrain has the same protesters who protested in Egypt, Libya and Syria. In fact, hardline Muslim radicals, not people who want democracy at all. They however have to use the D word to enlist sympathy and aid from the Western world. One of the supporters of the Grand Prix stated he did not know what all the fuss is about, and I'm inclined to agree. These Arabs, who have been protesting for about a year now, will jump at the opportunity to ruin anything that will give them publicity by the world media. Around the capital, police used stun grenades and hit the protesters with tear gas to stop them. Thought for the day. As a woman, and of uncertain age, I do not understand the anti-male, anti-family vitriol that seems to spurt forth from certain quarters. I know it is on a massive agenda both politically and media-wise, but fail to see how the ordinary person in the street can actually believe it. It works very simply, mainly through television. Men, bad. Women, good. Family, bad. Divorce, from the female perspective, good. Multi-race couplings, good. White-only couplings, bad. And so on and so forth. It is on the backdrop of these points and many more that we have allowed the creation of the new Britain. Multi-raced, I will not say cultured, getting poorer as a nation, in fact without depressing all and sundry, becoming just what certain powers wanted us to become. But all is not lost. Despite bussing into key areas hordes of Asians and Africans just before elections, there are still a good portion of people who know what is going on and are fighting it, albeit politically, which is the only way to go despite these odds. We will win out in the end, because the man in the street knows deep down that something stinks in the state of Denmark, from our old pal Will Shakespeare, and if it stank in his day, believe me, it is off the Richter scale nowadays in our country. I will leave you with this thought. France had a problem some years ago with immigrants, so it thought, how can we get rid of them without looking too bad? So it got together with a bunch of greedy, self-satisfied industrialists in the UK and came up with what? The Channel Tunnel. This way they can build a tunnel for everyone wanting to come to Britain, passing through France under the guise of bonhomme and helping British industry. I never could understand that one, rather like the new European Economic Community as opposed to the old common market. And of course much of our national debt has gone to pay for it. Then the French closed Sangatte down to make their work complete. Come on, Al-Qaeda. Now there's our real target for you. I wonder why you haven't thought of it before. And finally, the world's oldest man is celebrating his 115th birthday with his 14 grandchildren. Jiraman Kimura from Japan is the third oldest man to be recorded by the Guinness Book of Records. He was born in 1897. You have been listening to The World at 8. I am Lynn Mozart. All the team at Radio Britain wish you all a very safe and happy weekend. An act which nationalists say is just asking for many illegals to commit crime to stay in Britain and claim family, victim, life status. He attacked the woman shortly after his bail, punching her in the face and raping her in the park at Cambridge. He then stole her.
You're listening to The World at 8 with Lynn Mozart. Nationalist news.
Highlights of the news today, the 20th of April. A legal immigrant bailed before deportation proceeds to commit rape. Afghani immigrants jump to freedom off lorry near Selborne in Hampshire. From the belly of the beast with Nick Griffin. This is our country, mass immigration is ruining it. These are our freedoms. Reports say technology used in North Korean parade is probably Chinese. Grand Prix in Bahrain subject to 3 days of rage from protesters. Thought for the day: is the UK becoming anti-white, anti-male and anti-family? UK news: the border agency bailed an illegal immigrant who then went out and raped a 32-year-old woman. He was given bail pending his deportation.